Ferrari just sent a warning to the entire grid. Not a rumor. Not a headline. A lap time. 1 minute. 30.8 seconds. 4/10 clear of Red Bull. Top speed above 330 km per hour. And here's the part nobody expected. It did not look difficult. Charles Leclerc wasn't wrestling the car. He wasn't overdriving. He was calm. Precise. Almost comfortable. And when the data came in, the garage went quiet. Because this was not a flashy run for attention. Fuel corrected. No slipstream. Pure pace. Sector 1 was the fastest anyone managed all week. Sector 2 exposed Red Bull's biggest concern. And the straight line efficiency suggests Ferrari may have found something the others have not. This changes the competitive order. It shifts qualifying projections. It forces strategic recalculations before a single championship point is awarded. And if this performance translates to Saturday night in Bahrain, pole position may already have a favorite. Subscribe now, because what we are about to break down explains exactly why this lap left Vasseur and Hamilton speechless, and why the real implication is even bigger than the stopwatch. If you look at the raw timing sheet, it tells one story. If you look at the telemetry, it tells another. Because that lap was not built in one corner. It was constructed, layer by layer. Let's start with Sector 1. Power zone. Heavy traction out of Turn 1. Full deployment down the straight. The Ferrari reached over 330 km per hour before braking. No toe. No games. Just aerodynamic efficiency and hybrid punch working in perfect sync. And here's what makes rivals uncomfortable. The speed did not spike only at the end of the straight. It built early. Which means the energy deployment map is more aggressive and more refined. The car is releasing electrical power in a way that feels immediate. Explosive. But controlled. That alone is worth tenths. Now move to Sector 2. This is where championships are hinted at. High-speed direction change. Turns 11 and 12 demand absolute rear stability. One snap of oversteer there, and the lap is gone. Leclerc did not hesitate. He carried more minimum speed than anyone else all week. The car rotated sharply into the apex. The rear stayed planted. And that tells us something critical. The new rear wing system is not just about straight-line speed. It is stabilizing the car during transitional load. That is advanced aerodynamic behavior. And most fans missed it. But that is not the real turning point of this block. The real turning point is confidence. Watch Leclerc's steering input. Minimal correction. Clean trace. No panic adjustments mid-corner. Last season, he could not lean on the front end like this. Now he throws the car in and trusts the rear to follow. That psychological shift is enormous. Because in qualifying, confidence is worth more than raw horsepower. And here is where the narrative deepens. Ferrari did not abort the program after the headline lap. They kept running. No overheating. No reliability scares. The car absorbed high-power runs without complaint. That transforms a fast lap into a credible threat. But before you assume Ferrari has solved everything, consider this. When Leclerc switched to longer runs on the harder compound, degradation began creeping in after roughly a dozen laps. Not dramatic, but visible. Red Bull, by contrast, remained steadier. And that difference could decide Sunday. So what we are seeing is a car that is potentially lethal on Saturday, but still evolving for race trim. And that duality is fascinating. Because if Ferrari locks out the front row, track position changes the degradation equation entirely. Dirty air becomes someone else's issue. Strategic pressure shifts. And suddenly, that one lap in testing becomes far more than a statistic. It becomes leverage. But there is one more layer we have not explored yet. Why did this specific configuration unlock so much performance? And why did the garage reaction suggest they were not entirely surprised, yet still stunned? That is where the story gets even more interesting. Now let's go deeper. Because the configuration Ferrari chose was not random. It was aggressive. Lower rear ride height. Tight aero balance. Maximum exploitation of the new rear wing rotation system. And that system is the key. Unlike a traditional drag reduction setup, this mechanism deploys in stages. Not simply open or closed. It transitions. Smoothly. That means when Leclerc lifts off the throttle and moves into braking, the rear does not suddenly lose load. It tapers. That stability allows him to attack entry speed without fearing snap oversteer. And that changes how a driver commits. Most people think straight-line speed is about horsepower. It is not. It is about drag efficiency. And Ferrari has reduced drag without sacrificing cornering load. That combination is rare. Very rare. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The exhaust flow is being used to energize the diffuser more effectively. Which means when Leclerc exits slower corners, especially turn 8 and turn 10, the rear of the car squats and grips. He can apply full throttle earlier than the Mercedes, earlier than the Red Bull, even 15 meters earlier in certain exits. 15 meters may sound small. At this level, it is enormous. It compounds all the way down the next straight. That is free time. But this advantage comes with a cost. Because when you design a car to operate in such a precise aerodynamic window, you reduce tolerance. A slight wind shift, a minor track temperature drop, a small pressure miscalculation in the tires, and the balance shifts. That is why Hamilton described the car as sensitive but powerful. When it is inside the window, it feels incredible. When it drifts outside, it demands constant correction. This is not a forgiving machine. It is a sharp instrument. And sharp instruments can dominate or cut the user. Now imagine this scenario. Saturday evening in Bahrain. Track cooling. Grip rising. Leclerc goes out for the final qualifying run. The tires switch on immediately. Ferrari has shown excellent warm-up performance during testing. Immediate grip means no wasted corners. No preparation lap hesitation. He attacks from turn 1. If the operating window is hit perfectly, the lap will be untouchable. But if wind conditions mirror what we briefly saw in testing, instability could creep in. This is the knife edge Ferrari is walking. And here is what makes this block even more compelling. Red Bull did not chase a headline time. They focused on race consistency. That suggests confidence in long-run superiority. Ferrari, on the other hand, showcased peak pace. That suggests intent. Intent to control Saturdays. Intent to apply pressure early in the season. Because track position in Bahrain is strategic gold. If Leclerc starts ahead of Verstappen, tire degradation becomes defensive rather than offensive. Clean air protects the front tires. Dirty air punishes the chaser. And suddenly, Ferrari's slight long-run disadvantage becomes manageable. Do you see the bigger picture forming? This is not just about being fastest in testing. It is about reshaping the race weekend structure. If Ferrari owns qualifying, Red Bull is forced into strategic aggression. Undercuts. Alternative tire strategies. Risk. And risk creates opportunity. But there is still one unanswered question. Why did this breakthrough happen now? Why does the SF26 finally rotate the way Leclerc wants? And why did Vasseur look cautiously optimistic rather than surprised? Because this improvement did not appear overnight. It was built deliberately, quietly, and the most important piece of that transformation has not even been fully discussed yet. The missing piece is not mechanical. It is philosophical. Ferrari did not simply make the car faster. They changed who the car is built around. For the first time in several seasons, the front end has been designed to obey Charles Leclerc's instinct. Sharp initial rotation. Strong front bite. Rear stability that allows aggression on entry instead of hesitation. Last year, he had to adapt to the car. Now the car adapts to him. That is a fundamental shift. Because Leclerc's greatest weapon has never been tire conservation. It has never been strategic patience. It has always been raw, surgical qualifying speed. When the nose responds instantly, he becomes dangerous. When the rear supports that rotation, he becomes almost unstoppable over one lap. And during testing, that identity was visible. He attacked curbs with violence. Not recklessness. Controlled violence. That only happens when a driver trusts the suspension platform completely. And here is where Vasseur's reaction becomes important. He did not celebrate. He did not exaggerate. He acknowledged the lap was real. Fuel corrected. No artificial run plans. Which means internally, Ferrari expected this performance. They were not shocked by the number. They were shocked by the margin. Because the margin suggests something bigger. It suggests correlation between simulation and reality is finally aligned. In previous seasons, Ferrari often looked strong in theory. Wind tunnel numbers. Simulator optimism. Then race weekend exposed inconsistencies. This time, the Bahrain data matches the projections. That is what truly leaves engineers speechless. When numbers behave exactly as predicted, confidence multiplies. But confidence can also create danger. Because when a team realizes it has a qualifying advantage, development focus can subtly shift toward protecting that strength. And protecting a strength sometimes hides a weakness. Red Bull's long-run rhythm still looks marginally superior. Over extended stints, their degradation curve is flatter. Less dramatic drop. More stability in rear temperature control. Ferrari's curve still falls away slightly after the mid-phase of a stint. Not dramatically, but enough to matter in the final third of a race. So now the season opens with tension. Ferrari appears to have unlocked Saturday's supremacy. Red Bull remains the benchmark on Sunday consistency. And Mercedes is quietly watching both. But here is the psychological layer most people overlook. If Leclerc starts securing early poles, narrative pressure shifts to Verstappen. For the first time in recent memory, Max may have to attack rather than control. He may have to overtake rather than manage. And Bahrain is not forgiving when pushing in dirty air. Front tire overheating. Brake temperature spikes. Energy deployment compromises. All of it multiplies under pressure. Which means this preseason performance is not just technical. It is strategic. It is psychological. It is political inside the paddock. Because once a driver believes he has the fastest car over one lap, his entire approach changes. He pushes harder in Q3. He risks more on the final run. He dares to extract that last fraction. And Leclerc, when confident, operates at a different frequency. You could see it in his body language. Relaxed shoulders. Calm radio tone. Short responses. No frustration. That composure suggests something rare in Ferrari. Stability. And when Ferrari is stable internally, performance compounds externally. But everything still hinges on one unresolved variable. Can they stretch that qualifying dominance into sustained race control? Because if the degradation issue is reduced even slightly, if they manage tire temperature within 0.2 per lap of Red Bull, then the advantage of clean air becomes decisive. And suddenly, that single lap in Bahrain Preseason Testing transforms from an impressive statistic into the first warning shot of a genuine title fight. The data has spoken. The paddock has noticed. Now we wait to see if that brutal pace was a glimpse, or the beginning. There is one final layer that makes this entire situation even more explosive. Expectation. Because Ferrari has been fast in testing before. They have led headlines before. And yet, when the season began, reality sometimes told a different story. But this feels different. Not louder. Not exaggerated. Different. The difference is alignment. Technical alignment. Driver alignment. Leadership alignment. Fred Vasseur has spent the past year restructuring communication inside Ferrari. Shorter feedback loops. Clearer development priorities. Less political noise. And now, for the first time, the car on track reflects that clarity. It is not trying to be everything at once. It has a defined identity. Explosive over one lap. Efficient on the straights. Sharp at the front. Yes, it is sensitive. Yes, it operates in a narrow window. But it knows what it is. And that matters. Because championships are not won by perfect cars. They are won by cars that maximize a clear strength while managing a known weakness. Right now, Ferrari's strength is qualifying dominance. Their weakness is long-run tire fade. But here is the critical strategic twist. If you start from pole in Bahrain, the race unfolds differently. You control pace. You dictate energy deployment. You protect your tires in clean air. Red Bull's advantage in degradation only becomes decisive if they are ahead. If they are chasing, that advantage shrinks. Dirty air eats front tires. Forces earlier stops. Creates undercut pressure. And suddenly, the theoretical long-run superiority becomes harder to execute. This is why Leclerc's brutal preseason pace is not just about ego. It is leverage. Leverage over strategy. Leverage over race rhythm. Leverage over the psychological flow of a weekend. Now imagine the opening qualifying session of the season. Final runs. The lights go green. Leclerc exits the pit lane knowing he has already beaten Red Bull by nearly half a second in identical conditions. That memory stays with a driver. It fuels risk tolerance. It sharpens commitment through high-speed corners. And when a driver commits without hesitation, lap time follows. But there is a shadow hanging over all of this. Because preseason testing hides fuel loads, engine modes, true intentions. Red Bull may not have shown everything. Mercedes may still be concealing deployment tricks. And Ferrari's narrow operating window could become exposed under extreme heat or sudden wind shifts. That uncertainty is what makes this moment so powerful. We are standing at the edge of possibility. Not certainty. Possibility.